The strange new neighbor, the colony, was quiet, almost too quiet. It sat on the edge of a red desert, under two suns that painted the sky in strange colors every evening. Most of the people there lived simple lives. They worked in the mines during the day, shared food in the community hall, and locked their doors at night. Nothing unusual ever happened. That was why everyone noticed when the new neighbor arrived. He did not come with a smile or a greeting. He came in silence. A transport ship landed outside the settlement one morning, leaving a cloud of dust behind. Out of the ship stepped someone tall, much taller than any human. His skin was pale silver, smooth like stone. His eyes glowed faintly as if lit from within. He carried no luggage, only a dark case in one hand. No one knew his name. He simply walked to the empty house at the edge of the colony and went inside without a word. The narrator, who lived next door, saw everything from his window. At first he thought maybe the new arrival was just another worker from far away, maybe from another human colony, but the longer he looked, the more he realized this was not human. This was something else. The colony whispered about it. At the market, people spoke in low voices. "Have you seen him? He doesn't eat in the hall with us. He doesn't even talk." Others said, "I saw his eyes. They shine in the dark." Children dared each other to run past his house at night, but none stayed near for long. Something about him made people uneasy, as if he carried a secret no one wanted to uncover. For the first few days, the alien stayed inside his house. Windows covered with heavy curtains, doors always locked. At night, though, strange sounds began. The narrator would lie awake hearing deep growls like an animal caged inside. Sometimes it was not growls but humming, a low vibration that shook the walls and made the lights flicker. No one else seemed brave enough to ask questions, but the narrator could not help watching. One night, just past midnight, the narrator looked out again. The alien's window glowed faint red. The color spread like firelight even though there was no flame. Shadows moved across the curtains, tall, sharp shapes that looked nothing like a human figure. The narrator felt his chest tighten. He wanted to look away, but curiosity held him there. Suddenly, the shadows stopped, as if whoever was inside had sensed they were being watched. The glow faded and darkness returned. The narrator pulled back quickly, heart racing. The next morning, things seemed normal. The alien stepped outside for the first time. He was dressed in a long coat that reached the ground, covering his body. He walked slowly, as if studying the colony. People stared but did not approach. The narrator, standing by his door, felt the alien's eyes turn toward him. Those glowing eyes were not angry, not friendly either, just unreadable. For a moment it felt as if the alien could see straight into his mind. Then the alien looked away and continued walking. That was the first time the narrator truly felt fear. Not the fear of danger, but the fear of the unknown. Who was this neighbor? Why had he come to such a small colony, far from the busy trade routes? And why did his house glow red at night? Days passed, but the mystery only grew. The alien kept to himself. He bought food supplies, but never spoke more than a word. He walked alone, always returning before dark, and every night the strange noises came again. Growls, humming, sometimes even a loud crash as if furniture had been thrown against the wall. No one else complained, but the narrator knew he was not imagining it. Then came the first real sign of trouble. The colony pets, small dogs, cats, even the chickens kept behind the hall, began to vanish. People woke up to find empty cages, broken fences. Some said it was wild creatures from the desert, but the narrator had seen claw marks near his own fence, long and deep, like nothing he had ever seen before. He thought of his neighbor's growls and shivered. Still, he told no one. Part of him wanted to stay silent, to pretend nothing was wrong. But another part wanted to know the truth. He started keeping a small notebook, writing down the times when the noises began, when the lights glowed red, when the pets went missing. Patterns began to appear, but none that made sense. One evening, as the suns went down, the narrator stepped outside. The desert wind was cold, carrying dust and silence. He looked toward the alien's house. For the first time, the curtains were not fully closed. Through a small gap, he saw movement. The figure inside was not sitting or standing. It was crouched low, muscles shifting under silver skin, eyes burning brighter than before. The narrator's breath caught. He leaned closer, just a little, to see more. Then the alien's head turned sharply, their eyes locked through the window. For one frozen second, the narrator felt a heavy pressure inside his mind, like a hand pressing against his thoughts. He stumbled back, heart pounding, but the curtains dropped shut in an instant. The window went dark. The narrator ran inside, slamming his door. His hands shook as he wrote one line in his notebook: "The neighbor knows I am watching." First signs of trouble. The colony woke to silence one morning, a silence that felt heavier than usual. Normally, the sounds of animals filled the early hours: dogs barking, chickens clucking, children chasing them down the dusty paths. But that morning the air was strangely still. The narrator noticed first. His neighbor's window was shut tight again, curtains drawn. But outside the narrator's own door, something else waited. At the base of the wooden frame, deep scratches had been carved into the surface. They were long, curved lines, like claws dragging through wood. Splinters lay scattered on the ground, sharp as needles. The narrator crouched and touched one. The marks were fresh. A cold shiver moved through him. He looked up and across the yard. The alien's house sat quiet. No smoke from the chimney, no sound from within. Just stillness. He tried to shake it off. Maybe it was a desert animal. Maybe the colony's thin walls couldn't keep them out. But deep inside he knew better. He had heard the growls at night. He had seen the red glow. And the claw marks, they were too clean, too deliberate. That afternoon, whispers spread through the colony. Old Marta, who kept chickens near the hall, cried that half her flock had vanished. "Gone," she said, waving her arms. The door was torn open. "Not open, torn," the others muttered, uneasy. Some nodded toward the desert, blaming wild creatures. Others looked toward the edge of the colony, toward the alien's home. No one said it aloud, but everyone thought the same thing. The narrator stayed silent. He didn't want to accuse without proof. Still, his notebook filled with more notes. Claw marks on his door. Chickens missing. Alien house quiet in the day, strange at night. That night he stayed awake longer than usual. He sat by his window watching the street. The colony slept early. By midnight, no lamps burned except his. The desert wind whistled between the houses. Then a shadow moved. Tall, slow, careful. The narrator held his breath. The figure stepped into the pale moonlight, and it was him, the alien neighbor. No coat this time, no cover. His body shimmered faintly, muscles shifting beneath skin that caught the light like metal. His glowing eyes scanned the street, sharp and searching. The narrator ducked behind his curtain, peeking through the smallest gap. The alien sniffed the air, his head tilting slightly as if listening for something unseen. Then, with a sudden, unnatural speed, he turned his head toward the narrator's house. The narrator froze. For one long moment he felt those glowing eyes cut through the wall, as though the alien could see him even in hiding. His heart pounded so loudly he feared it would give him away. But after a moment the alien looked elsewhere and walked down the road, steps almost silent despite his size. The narrator dared to breathe again. He opened his notebook with shaking hands and wrote, "He walks the colony at night." The next morning brought new fear. A family's dog was missing. Its chain snapped clean in two. Children were warned not to play outside after sunset. Doors were bolted earlier than before. Still, no one spoke the truth aloud. No one wanted to point a finger at the alien. People avoided him in the day, turning away when he passed. But everyone felt it, the unease spreading like a sickness. The narrator, though, couldn't stop thinking about it. He needed answers. That evening, before dark, he walked past the alien's house. Up close, the air felt heavier, like a storm waiting to break. The door was scratched in places, almost as though something had clawed from the inside. A faint humming sound drifted from within, low and vibrating like a machine, but too alive, too organic. He pressed closer, holding his breath. Then, from the other side of the door came a sound that froze him completely. A deep growl, long and slow, followed by a whisper. The voice was not human. It spoke words he could not understand, sharp and rolling, but his body reacted as though it knew danger. He stumbled back, nearly tripping over his own feet, and hurried away. That night he tried to sleep but couldn't. Every creak in the house made him jump. Every gust of wind against the shutters felt like claws scratching again. Finally, near dawn, exhaustion pulled him under. But even in dreams, he wasn't safe. He dreamed of glowing eyes outside his window, watching, of shadows crawling along his walls, of red light bleeding into his room. He woke drenched in sweat, heart racing, the dream so real it clung to him even in daylight. The colony grew restless. More animals vanished, doors cracked open by force. Some people whispered about moving deeper into the desert, away from the settlement. But where would they go? The colony was small, supplies were tight, and the desert was harsher than any beast. They had no choice but to stay. One evening, the narrator stepped outside again. The suns were setting, painting the sky in orange and violet. He glanced at his neighbor's house and stopped. On the ground near the alien's door lay something dark, something sharp. He walked closer, careful, nervous. It was a claw. Long, black, curved, broken clean at the base. It gleamed in the fading light, sharp enough to cut through wood or bone. He bent down, picked it up, and felt a jolt of dread. The claw was warm. He dropped it instantly, heart racing, and stepped back. Slowly, his eyes rose to the window above. The curtains shifted slightly, just enough to show a glimmer of red light inside. The narrator turned and ran back to his house, slamming the door, locking it tight. He pressed his back to the wall, breathing hard. In his notebook, he wrote only one line this time, his hand trembling so badly the words shook across the page. The trouble has already started. The alien reveals himself. The colony had started to change. People no longer lingered outside after dark. The laughter of children was gone from the streets. Every door was locked before the suns dipped below the horizon. It was as if the entire settlement was holding its breath, waiting for something they could not name. But the narrator could feel it clearly. The presence next door was growing stronger, heavier, harder to ignore. Nights were no longer filled with sleep, but with the scratching of claws, the hum of strange vibrations, and the sense of eyes always watching. The claw he had found still haunted him. He had hidden it under his bed, wrapped in cloth, afraid that even throwing it away would somehow call its owner closer. On the fourth night, the knocking came. At first, it was soft. 3 steady taps against the door. The narrator sat frozen in his chair, notebook open on the table. The lamps flickered as if the air itself trembled. The knocking came again, louder this time, deliberate. He stood, heart racing, and moved toward the door. His hand hovered over the lock. Every part of his mind screamed to stay still, to pretend he wasn't home. But curiosity was stronger. With shaking fingers, he slid the bolt and pulled the door open. There he was, the alien. No coat, no disguise. The silver of his skin gleamed faintly in the moonlight. His eyes glowed, not bright but steady like twin coals. His mouth curved in something between a frown and a warning. "You should not watch me," the alien said. His voice was low, rough, almost vibrating inside the narrator's bones. The narrator tried to speak, but the words stuck in his throat. He finally managed, What are you doing here?" The alien's gaze did not soften. "Do not come near my house this week. Do not look at me through your window. Stay inside. Lock your doors." It was not a request. It was a command. The narrator swallowed hard. "Why, what's happening?" The alien's jaw tightened. His eyes flared brighter for a moment, then dimmed again. "It is dangerous. For you." Before the narrator could ask more, the alien turned and walked away, his movements heavy but swift. Within seconds, he had vanished into his own home, the door slamming shut behind him. The narrator stood frozen in the open doorway, heart hammering. Dangerous. That single word echoed in his head. He shut the door and locked it again, leaning against the wood. For the first time, he wasn't just curious. He was afraid. That night, the noises grew worse. The growls shook the walls. Furniture inside the alien's house smashed against floors and walls. The humming grew louder, a low pulse that made the narrator's chest vibrate. He pressed his pillow over his ears, but the sounds cut through. He thought he heard words too, but in no language he knew. Harsh, guttural, desperate. At dawn, silence returned. The colony, though, woke to more fear. The baker's goat was gone, its pen ripped apart. Footprints, deep and burning, marked the sand nearby. Not human footprints, longer, heavier, each step scorched black into the ground. The narrator followed them quietly. They led past the market, past the water tower, and ended at the alien's door. No one else dared say anything, but the connection was clear. Still, people turned away. No one wanted to accuse openly. They needed peace more than answers, and fear kept their mouths shut. The narrator, though, could not rest. That evening, as the sun sank and painted the desert blood red, he crept outside once more. The alien's curtains glowed again, not faintly but strong, the red light spilling across the sand like fire. Shadows twisted inside. Long limbs, shapes bending and stretching in ways no human body could move. He stepped closer, heart in his throat. Then without warning, the shadows froze. The red light flickered as if aware of him. The curtain shifted. The alien's face appeared in the window. His eyes burned brighter than before, sharp and unblinking. For a moment, the narrator felt the same crushing pressure inside his head as the first time, like invisible hands pushing against his thoughts. He staggered back, clutching his skull. A voice filled his mind, not through his ears, but straight into his brain. Leave. Do not return. The window snapped shut. Darkness. The narrator stumbled back to his home, gasping for breath. His notebook fell from his hand, pages scattering in the dust. He didn't even bother to pick them up. He locked the door and pressed his back against it, shaking. Later that night, the sounds began again, louder than ever. The colony stirred uneasily, children crying, dogs barking. The narrator sat in the dark, every lamp blown out by the humming vibration that rolled through the walls. And then came the final noise, a crash so heavy it rattled the ground itself. It came from inside the alien's home. A roar followed, deeper than anything he had ever heard, almost animal, almost human. It rose into the sky, shaking the air, and then cut off suddenly, leaving silence so thick it hurt. The narrator did not sleep. He only wrote one thing in his notebook before dawn broke over the desert. He warned me, but the danger is already here. The mating season, the colony felt different now. Even during the day, a strange tension filled the air. People spoke less, doors stayed locked longer, and every shadow seemed too sharp, too alive. The narrator carried this weight heavier than the rest. He had seen the red glow, heard the roars, felt the alien's voice in his mind. And he had heard the warning. It is dangerous for you. He needed answers. Fear alone was not enough anymore, so he turned to the colony's archive. The archive was small, only a room filled with old records and half-broken terminals. Most people rarely used it, but the narrator slipped inside, locking the door behind him. Dust floated in the thin sunlight as he began searching. The colony had been built decades ago, and records from the first explorers still rested in its files. Among them were notes on other species encountered across the stars. He typed in keywords: alien, silver skin, glowing eyes. At first, nothing. Then after hours of searching, he found it. A small file, half-corrupted, written by an early scout team. The text flickered across the screen, broken but readable. Subject species: Vathra. Humanoid form: high intelligence denotes. During mating cycle, instincts dominate logic. Period lasts 7 days. Behavior becomes aggressive, territorial, and unpredictable. Warning: do not remain near an isolated Vathra during this time. Fatal incidents recorded. The narrator's hand shook as he scrolled further. The file continued. When no suitable partner is present, Vathra may lash out at nearby beings. Strength increases. Control decreases. Only survival or successful bond ends cycle. His breath caught. 7 days. A full week of danger. And the alien had already been in the colony for 4 nights of strange noises and violent signs. That meant only 3 nights remained. He leaned back in the chair, heart pounding. The colony had no idea what lived beside them. No one knew the truth, that their quiet settlement sat next to a creature caught in its most dangerous state. He closed the file quickly, afraid even the archive machine might betray him. He hurried home, notebook clutched under his arm, mind racing. That night, the evidence grew clearer. The growls were not just animal sounds anymore. They carried rhythm, almost like words, though twisted and broken. The roars shook windows. Doors rattled on their hinges. And outside, the sand bore new footprints, long, sharp, glowing faintly at the edges. The narrator pressed his face to his window, just enough to see. The alien stood in his yard, shoulders hunched, chest heaving. His eyes glowed brighter than ever before, painting the darkness red. His claws flexed, scraping sparks from stone. Then, for the first time, the alien spoke words aloud, his voice carrying into the night. It is not here. It is not here. The narrator's blood ran cold. The alien was searching for a mate, for something to end the hunger inside him. And when he found nothing, what would he turn to? The colony was small. The narrator lived closest. He backed away from the window, trying not to breathe too loudly. His notebook lay open on the table. He wrote quickly, his species, Vathra. Mating season, 7 days. If no partner, he will attack. I may be target. The words looked unreal even as he wrote them, but deep inside he knew they were true. The following morning the colony gathered in the hall. Fear had reached its peak. Animals gone. Strange sounds at night, doors scratched open. But still no one spoke the alien's name. They argued about desert predators, about moving watchtowers further out. They clung to excuses because the truth was too heavy. The narrator sat silent in the back, his notes hidden in his coat. He wanted to tell them, to warn everyone, but his throat closed each time he tried. Who would believe him? Who would face the glowing eyes next door? That night things grew worse. The alien's house shook violently. Windows cracked. Red light pulsed from every seam, beating like a heart. The humming turned into a constant thrum, rattling through the ground itself. The narrator lay awake, unable to move, every muscle tight with dread. Then came the sound of wood splitting, his fence broken. Heavy steps in his yard. The doorknob shook once, twice, then stopped. Silence followed. A silence so deep it made his ears ring. Then a whisper from just outside his door. Chosen. The narrator clamped his hand over his mouth, choking back a cry. His entire body froze. He did not open the door. He did not breathe until the steps moved away, fading back toward the alien's house. When dawn finally came, the desert was quiet again, but the narrator felt no relief. His notebook's new entry was short, written with trembling fingers. I am not just neighbor. I am chosen. 3 nights remained. Dangerous encounters. The suns fell quickly that evening, sinking behind the desert dunes in streaks of red and violet. The narrator sat at his desk, lamp burning low, notebook open. His hands would not stop shaking. The word chosen burned in his mind, echoing with each beat of his heart. He tried to write, but the pencil slipped in his damp fingers. He only managed one shaky line. He has chosen me. I do not know why. The house creaked under the cold wind. Every sound made him flinch. He checked the locks on the windows again and again, but no lock felt strong enough. The memory of claws tearing through wood returned, reminding him that doors meant little to someone like the neighbor. And then it began, a soft scratching on the wall. At first, the narrator thought it was only the wind, but the sound grew sharper, deeper, as if claws dragged across the boards. Long strokes, slow and deliberate. He held his breath and listened. Scratch. Pause. Scratch. The sound moved, circling the house. The narrator backed into the center of the room, clutching his notebook like a shield. His lamp flickered with the low hum that always came before worse things. Then 3 heavy knocks against the wall. The blows rattled the shelves, knocked a cup to the floor. He stumbled backward, heart pounding. Go away, he whispered, though he knew the alien could not hear, or worse, could hear everything. A moment later, the sound shifted, this time claws against the door, a slow drag from top to bottom, wood splitting under the force. The narrator grabbed a chair and shoved it under the handle, though he knew it would not matter. His body trembled, ready to run even though there was nowhere safe to run to. And then came the voice. Let me in. It was not spoken through wood. It came from inside his skull, heavy and deep, pressing against his thoughts like cold fingers. He clamped his hands over his ears, but the voice remained. Chosen. Do not hide from me. The narrator stumbled back, knocking over the table. Papers scattered across the floor, his notebook sliding under the bed. He wanted to scream, but fear closed his throat. The door shook violently, the chair under the handle creaking, ready to snap. A roar followed, louder than any before, rattling every wall. The lamp went out, plunging the room into darkness. For a long moment, silence. Only his own heartbeat filled the air. Then slowly the pressure faded. The scratching stopped. The footsteps moved away. He heard them crossing the yard, heavy and deliberate, until they vanished into the alien's house. The narrator collapsed onto the floor, gasping for breath. He crawled toward the bed, pulling out his notebook with shaking hands. By the faint moonlight from the window, he scribbled, He is testing the walls. He wants me. He will come again. He did not sleep that night. The next day, the colony noticed the damage. Neighbors saw the deep claw marks on his door, the broken fence, the sand scorched near his steps. They whispered questions, but the narrator said nothing. His fear was too heavy, his secret too sharp. To speak aloud what he knew would only make it more real. That evening, he tried to prepare. He pushed furniture against the door, nailed boards over the window, lit every lamp he owned. He sat with a knife in his hand, though he knew a blade would be useless. And still, when darkness came, so did the alien. The first sound was the whisper, his name, carried on the wind though no lips had spoken it. The lamps flickered. His ears filled with the hum. He pressed his back against the wall, knife shaking in his grip. A shadow passed across the window. Not human. Too tall, too wide. Claws scraped the glass, leaving long cracks like spider webs. The narrator's breath hitched. He clutched the knife tighter. Though his hands were weak, the shadow lingered. Then with one sudden strike, the glass shattered. Shards flew across the room, sparkling in the lamplight. A clawed hand reached through, groping the air, seeking him. The narrator screamed and slashed with the knife. The blade struck, scraping against something hard like stone. The alien hissed, a sound that shook the walls, and pulled his hand back. The window went dark. Heavy footsteps retreated again, slower this time, as if testing patience. The narrator collapsed, chest heaving, knife clattering to the floor. His lamps flickered weakly, their oil nearly gone. He sat in the middle of the wreckage, broken glass around him, too afraid to move. Minutes crawled by like hours, and then faintly, from outside, "Not long now." The words slid into his mind, cold and certain. He pressed his hands to his head, rocking back and forth, whispering to himself. 3 days. 3 days left. He picked up his notebook again, writing furiously, his handwriting jagged and broken. He is patient. He is waiting. But not forever. He will break through. Soon. The desert outside was silent again, but the silence felt worse than any roar. The unexpected consequence. The night fell heavy, thicker than any before. Even the desert wind was quiet, as if the world itself waited for what was about to happen. The narrator sat in his house, every lamp burning, every window boarded. He clutched his knife again, though he already knew it would not save him. His notebook lay open on the table, the last line staring back at him. Soon. He had written it himself, but the word had come from the alien's voice. The humming began earlier this time. A low vibration that rattled the dishes made the lamp flames dance. His stomach twisted. He could feel it not only in the air but inside his body, inside his chest. It was not just sound. It was a pull. Then came the footsteps, heavy, slow, deliberate. They stopped at his door. The scratching started again, but this time there was no patience. Claws tore at the boards with raw strength, ripping wood apart as if it were paper. Dust fell from the ceiling. The narrator backed into the corner, knife trembling in his grip. "Stay away," he whispered, voice shaking. "Please, stay away." The door shook violently. The chair bracing it cracked and snapped. The lamps flickered. A roar exploded through the house, shaking every wall louder than thunder. The door burst inward, wood splintering in all directions, and there he was, the alien. No coat, no restraint. His full form filled the doorway, shoulders broad, muscles like stone, skin glowing faintly in the lamplight. His eyes blazed red, not like coal now, but like fire. His claws stretched long, sharp as blades. The narrator raised the knife, though his hands shook too badly to aim. Don't come closer!" The alien stepped forward. The humming filled the room until the narrator's bones ached. The knife slipped from his hand, clattering to the floor. Then something strange happened. The alien stopped. He did not attack. He did not roar. Instead, he stood still, chest heaving, eyes locked on the narrator. The glow of those eyes shifted, not bright red now, but deeper, almost golden. The narrator's breath caught. For a moment he felt it again, that heavy pressure inside his head. But it wasn't sharp this time. It was warm, pulling instead of crushing. A voice entered his mind, steady and deep. "You are mine." The narrator staggered back, pressing against the wall. "Why me?" he whispered aloud, though he knew the alien could already hear his thoughts. Why not anyone else? The alien took another step, lowering his claws. His voice filled the narrator's skull again. "Because you saw me." You did not run, the room spun. His legs trembled, nearly giving out. The alien was not here to kill him, at least not yet. The neighbor had chosen him in another way. The colony guards must have heard the crash because footsteps pounded outside. Shouts filled the night. The alien's eyes snapped toward the door, glowing brighter again. He hissed low, a sound of pure rage. The guards burst in, weapons raised. Blades and shock rods gleamed in the lamplight. "Step away," one of them shouted. The alien roared, louder than anything yet. The sound knocked the lamps out, plunging the room into chaos. In the flashes of firelight, the narrator saw claws slash through the air, heard the crash of weapons breaking, the screams of men thrown against walls. The guards fought bravely, but it was useless. The alien moved like a storm, too fast, too strong. Within moments, they were on the ground, groaning, their weapons shattered. The narrator pressed himself against the wall, heart hammering. He expected the claws next, expected death. But instead, the alien turned back toward him, chest heaving, eyes glowing. He reached out, not to strike, but to touch. His clawed hand lowered, pressing gently against the narrator's chest. The humming grew louder, surrounding him, filling him. His vision blurred. His body shook, not from fear now, but from something else, something deep, something strange. A rush of thoughts filled his mind, none of them his own. Flashes of red deserts under foreign skies, battles fought long ago, voices calling in languages he didn't know, and hunger. A deep hunger that clawed at the alien from the inside out. The alien's voice came again, softer now. "Bond with me, or I will not survive, and neither will you." The narrator gasped for breath, chest burning under the alien's hand. He wanted to scream no, wanted to fight, but part of him felt the truth in those words. Their lives were now tied, twisted together by something he did not understand. The alien's eyes dimmed slightly, the glow shifting again toward gold. His hand trembled. He was fighting himself, fighting the hunger. The narrator whispered, almost without thinking, "I don't want to die." The alien leaned closer, his voice echoing inside the narrator's skull. "Then you will not." And just like that, the humming faded. The claws lowered fully. The alien stepped back, chest still heaving, but calmer now. The narrator collapsed to his knees, gasping for air. Around him, broken furniture, shattered lamps, groaning guards, but no death. "Not yet." The alien turned toward the door, his voice low but clear. "Next time, I may not stop." Then he vanished into the night, leaving silence behind. The narrator clutched his notebook with shaking hands and wrote the only thing his trembling mind could form. The consequence is not death. The consequence is the bond. The final choice. The colony was not the same after that night. The guards who had faced the alien bore deep cuts and broken bones. They told no one what they had seen. Their silence was not out of loyalty but fear. Who would believe them if they spoke? Who would dare to say aloud that a predator lived among them, one too strong to fight? The rest of the colony whispered only of noises, of shadows, of the strange glow that bled from the neighbors' windows. But no one confronted him. No one wanted to. Fear was easier than truth. The narrator, though, could not escape the truth. He carried it inside him now. The bond was not spoken, not signed, but it existed. He felt it in his chest, a strange weight that never left. When he breathed, sometimes he swore he could feel another breath within his own. When he closed his eyes, flashes of alien landscapes filled his mind. Red deserts, towers of stone, skies split by storms, and hunger. Always hunger. 3 nights remained in the cycle, but already the alien had pushed to the edge. The narrator knew the next encounter would not end the same. He could not count on hesitation. He could not count on mercy. The choice pressed against him like a blade, resist and die, or accept the bond. The second night after the attack, the alien came again. The narrator heard him before he saw him. The humming, the heavy steps in the yard, the faint glow through the cracks in the boards. He sat on the floor, knife beside him, notebook open. His hand shook as he wrote, "Tonight I must decide." The door did not break this time. The alien entered through the window, moving almost silently despite his size. His claws scraped against the floor, his eyes burning bright. The narrator stood, heart pounding. "Why me?" he whispered again, though he knew the answer already. The alien's voice filled his mind. "Because you are closest. Because you did not turn away. Because I chose." The narrator gritted his teeth. "I never agreed." The alien's chest heaved, his glow flickering brighter. His voice came again, heavier now, desperate. "If you do not, I will lose myself. I will tear this colony apart. You cannot stop me. They cannot stop me." The narrator's throat tightened. He imagined the colony burning, the guards slaughtered, the people he had known since childhood torn apart by claws. And all because he refused. He pressed his back against the wall, sweat running down his face. If I agree, what happens to me? The alien stepped closer, his presence filling the room like a storm. You survive, but you are no longer only yourself. You will be mine. The words struck harder than claws. The narrator's chest ached. His mind spun. Survival at the cost of freedom. Life at the cost of being claimed. For a long moment, silence filled the room. Only the sound of his heart racing like a drum. Then outside, a voice broke the stillness. One of the guards, brave or foolish, had returned. "Open up!" he shouted. "We know you're in there." The alien turned, eyes blazing, a low growl shaking the floor. He crouched low, ready to strike. The narrator saw it clearly. If the guards entered, they would die. The alien would not hold back again. And once the killing began, it would not stop. He made his choice. "Wait," the narrator cried, stepping forward. His voice cracked, but it was loud enough. The alien froze, his glowing eyes snapping back toward him. The narrator's chest heaved. His voice shook. I accept. I bond." The alien went still. The growl faded. His claws lowered slowly to his sides. The glow in his eyes shifted, red dimming into deep gold. For the first time, his breathing eased. The humming filled the room again, but softer this time, less violent. The narrator staggered, clutching his chest as warmth spread through him, crawling up his spine, filling his skull. His vision blurred. The world tilted. He saw flashes again, red deserts, storms, voices, but now they were clearer, sharper, tied to him. The alien's memories and his own tangled together, two streams becoming one. The alien stepped closer, placing a clawed hand gently against the narrator's shoulder. His voice filled the narrator's mind once more, not as a demand, but as a vow. "Mine, and I, yours." The guards outside banged against the door, shouting, but the narrator barely heard them. He could only feel the weight of the bond, pressing, binding, unbreakable. His knees buckled. He dropped to the floor, gasping for breath. When he looked up, the alien was kneeling too, his glow dimmed, his body trembling with relief. The danger had passed. The cycle would end. The colony would survive because of him, but at what cost? Later, when the alien had gone back into his house, the narrator sat alone in the wreckage. His notebook lay open before him, pages torn and dirty. His hand shook as he wrote the final words. The choice was survival, but I am no longer only myself. Next season, what will I become? He dropped the pencil, staring at the page. Outside, the desert was silent again. The colony slept in uneasy peace, unaware of the bond that now bound one man to a creature not human. The narrator closed his notebook and whispered into the dark. I survived, but I am not free. And somewhere next door, in the red glow of his house, the alien whispered back. Voice carried through the bond, soft but certain. Next time you will not resist.